the number one question that I got from everybody is, why do you do this? I like to think of myself as the influencer for the influencers. I wouldn't have known about any of this life if you weren't so prevalent. There's a lot of people out there that have RV channels. There's a lot of people that have carnivore channels, but nobody that's done both to the level that I've taken it. And that's how dedicated I am to helping other people. The manager came out. He said, I don't think I can do a dessert for you guys because you're carnivore. I said, no, we really don't need anything. He says, I got something. He wandered off. He came back 20 minutes later with a filet mignon with 2 candles in it. And he said, can you eat this? We destroyed it. Yes. I fired my neurologist. Every time I described an issue, something that I was having, they would throw something else at it. Pain management doctors would want to try to get a hold of it and do something. But honestly, nothing has worked. So I just have to learn how to handle it myself.
Okay, there we go. Okay, good morning, everybody. Today we have with us, I guess Greg is going to share his story with us. Greg, good morning. Welcome. How you doing today, man?
Hey, good morning, Dr. Baker. I'm doing great. Thanks.
It's been a little while since I've seen you. It's been a couple weeks here or so, something like that. So good to have you here.
Thank you.
Obviously, tell me, where are you located right now? Are you in Florida? Where are you at?
Yeah, so I'm actually back in Ormond Beach, Florida, which is just north of Daytona Beach. And I am here until the end of the month because my wife and I are buying her a townhome because she's going to live in that. And I'm going to travel the country, 48 states starting in June.
Okay, we'll get into that a little more because people that have met you don't understand your sort of interesting background. Tell us a little bit about your backstory a little bit, if you don't mind, Greg.
Sure. Let's go back to 2012. I was 42 years old. I was extremely overweight, 250 pounds. I shared a photograph with Felice of that and just needed to get healthy again and wanted to be back to where I was when I was 18. So I did human chorionic gonadotropin and 500 calories a day. I was basically starving myself.
HCG diet, right? Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah. So I did that and it worked. And unfortunately, all of it came back. And so in 2015, I moved to Florida. In 2017, I started marathon running. Wow. I was running 25 miles a week. And then in 2019, I had injured myself pretty badly. Sorry, that's my little carnivore Finn. There's nowhere I can put him that he won't bark. I'm sorry. Finn, come here. So I was a marathon runner. I had torn my gastric muscle and I stopped being able to run for about 8 or 9 months. Then I had a massive stroke in December of 2019, December 3rd. And that stroke was precipitated by taking methylprednisolone and steroid on the heels of what we thought was a cold. So that's how it all started for me. But I've been a carnivore once before, September through December of 2019, gained all my weight back, got very heavy because of being depressed after the stroke and my mom passing away, and decided to get back into it. And now here I am.
Interesting. It's kind of funny because you said I was way overweight at 250. That's what I weigh now. So I'm like,
and you're about 7 feet taller than me.
I'm a little taller, yeah, for sure. And for you guys to know, I met Greg in person a couple of weeks ago in Austin, Texas at KetoCon. He had this. Well, let's talk about it. You've got this huge, impressive RV. It's decked out and all. I don't know what. I mean, it looks like I'm sure it costs a ton of money, but it's just this huge, beautiful facility that you have. It's all painted or it's decorated. I would say decorated. It's finished out. All these cuts of meat are described on the outside. So you will become a meat evangelist. And so let's talk about it. So you have this stroke. You said you didn't mention this, but you said it was a brainstem stroke. What was the effect of that to you? And then how did you recover from that?
Wow. So I was actually texting you from the bed the next day. The doctor told me that I wasn't even supposed to survive a full night. Told my wife that she could sleep in the bed with me because I wasn't going to wake up the next day. And she was my fiance at the time. So the next day I'm texting you from the bed as best I can doing this number. And you had said you had never met a brainstem stroke survivor before. And what I'd heard from people in the past, from doctors in the past, is that the only reason why anybody goes 24 hours is because 23 hours and 55 minutes are spent fighting over who's going to be the one to unplug them from the wall because their brain's already dead. So my precipitated problems were that I had to learn how to balance again. I couldn't surf. I couldn't windsurf. Boating was not a good idea. Reminded me of the vertigo I had. and I had to learn to drive again. So basically at 49 years old, I was relearning my life. And I turned to my wife and I said, honey, we either live in a van down by the river or I'm going to go the way of Chris Farley. So we did both. We lived in the van down by the river. That turned into day drinking because when you're out with a lot of people and COVID happened to hit right after. So as you're traveling around the country, hanging out with people, sometimes you see the same friends over and over again. 9:00 in the morning, somebody's holding a handle of Tito's and a bottle of Zing Zang, and you're starting off the day with Bloody Marys and finishing with bourbon or beer. I fell into that trap. Oh, it was horrible. So we got off the road in June of 2022, and I turned to my wife and said, I can't leave the road. I love this too much. So with about $100,000 invested in the or that you were just talking about, I told her I had this crazy idea. I wanted to decorate the outside like a butcher paper for a cow or a butcher map. And she said, okay. The truth is, it's my accountability partner because you can't step out of that rig looking like some fat slob who doesn't take care of themselves and expect other people to think what you're doing is a good idea.
Yeah, it's interesting how that evolved. And like I said, I'm just trying to impress upon people. It's a very impressive facility. It's got a huge big screen TV, washer and dryer, gas stove, all kinds of beds, showers. It's quite a impressive facility, to say the least. And you've been driving around the country with that. As far as the brainstem kind of runs some of our primitive functions, breathing and heart rate and things like that. So it's like the basis of core who we are. And when you have a interruption of that, obviously those things getting disrupted can be certainly lethal, and fortunately survive that. And so you've been, like you said, you've been on this sort of reintroduced carnivore diet. At what point, how long has it been now?
So I reintroduced the diet in August of 2022. And this time I'm taking it more like a marathon, not a sprint. It was a sprint the first time around. I didn't really know anything about seed oils. I didn't know much about everything I didn't know about seed oils, I now know. So the second time around, starting in August, is when I got back into it. And this time, being very diligent about how I approach this. I color outside the lines every now and then, but not much because I don't like the way it makes me feel.
Okay. Very good. Fair enough. That's what a lot of people are like. How do you not eat all this junk on them? Do you attempt to, you have, and you feel like garbage, and it's a pretty good disincentive to quote unquote cheat or things like that. But it's been very helpful. And tell me a little bit about, so the RV, you've been driving around. Tell me, where have you been? Where do you go? What kind of reception have you been getting? Do people like, what the hell is this thing when they see it?
And that's the point. It's the conversation starter. So I get all kinds of reactions on the highway, all good so far. Nobody's shot me any birds. Nobody's driven me off the highway, which is great. I get a lot of thumbs up and a lot of honks. So I've got a train horn on the F-350 and a honk back, and they like that. When I pull into a campground, so far I have been from Florida, where I started this. I began here, tested it out for about a month, and then I took it over to Austin, Texas. And that was really, if you don't have a map to get you there and you don't have a true goal, then everything is just a dream. So once I finally had KetoCon 2023 as my goal and my finish line, that's where I had to really accelerate my work to get the website and the social media done. And then, of course, finish the rig. So I drove it across Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and then into Texas. Now, being in the South, it's pretty easy to get a lot of fans in the carnivore world because most Southerners like to eat meat. I'm wary about what it's going to be like when I get to the Pacific Northwest or the extreme Northeast, but we'll see. So far, I've been to Texas and back. I've got about 3,900 miles on the trailer as Brisket, the RV. And its name is Brisket, by the way. And the reception has been phenomenal. Can I tell you about the most recent stay in Fort Worth?
Yeah, of course.
This is exactly what I want to happen. I parked the RV the next morning and I got in late. I usually don't get in the dark, but I got in late. The next morning, I'm outside going to my truck and a lady meets me outside the rig as she's getting out of her car. And she said, my husband gets in from work at 10 o'clock every night. And he saw your rig last night and came in and said, honey, you have got to see what's parked outside our RV.
And so the next morning she saw it and she was surprised. And she said, I've got to know what it's all about. And I said, okay, if you know anything about keto, this is the next step away from sugar intake. It's called the carnivore lifestyle. I hate the D word, so I don't like to say diet. And she said, what's that all about? And I told her, and she said, oh my goodness, my mother literally just passed away from diabetes a week ago. And I know I have to change my life or I'm going to go the way of her. And I said, I'll tell you what, if you take a picture of the rig, there's a scan code, it'll automatically feed and you'll start to learn about what I've got, what I do. And then when you want to know more, I'm literally right here. Ask me any question you want. And if I can't help you, people like Dr. ShawnBaker, Dr. Ken Berry, these folks can help you. And she said, oh, that's amazing. So I close the door, get back to my day. I come back 2 days later after visiting my daughter in Dallas, and there's another guy parked on the other side of me, and he walks up very overweight, works as a lineman for the power company, and he looked like he was maybe a couple of years younger than me. I'd say 51. He said, what is this all about? And I explained it to him, and he said, I clicked on the link on the side. I saw that QR code, so I clicked it. Tell me about this carnivore thing. And I said, it's a sustainable way of life. You get to eat the thing you love the most, meats. And he said, I'm all about that. He called me the next day. We spoke for an hour as I was driving back towards Florida. We spoke for an hour. He texted me afterwards and he said, here's a picture of my hamburger patties that I ate for lunch today. And I said, welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. That's exactly how this is all supposed to work.
Good for you. That's awesome. Yeah. And it is, because even though I've been working at this for half a decade or more, trying to get this information out there, and still there's so many people that are like, what do you mean you can just eat meat or just eat mostly meat? How's that possible? And then clearly it's possible. And clearly it's been very beneficial for many people. I'm going to guess that you're going to get a pretty good reception in the Northeast and in the Pacific Northwest. Despite all the rhetoric and the propaganda, most people like to eat meat. Most people out there, I don't care what part of the world you're in, if it's an option for you, most people are going to preference that. It's just who we are as a species. We innately are attracted to that. That's just what we like. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And when you embrace who we are deep down as a species, as a creature, we find that when we listen to that, we get healthy and happy and we feel better. Do you driving around? How does that? Because people are like, how the heck can you just drive around the country and drive around in a big old meat wagon? What's a little more background? You said you used to be a police officer, if I'm not mistaken, and you were able to retire from that. You were fortunately with some investments and stuff. Like, how are you? This is like your vocation now, basically, right?
It basically is. That's correct. And my wife and I have been talking about this because for me, I explained to her that I'm going to travel anyways. I'm going to do this, but I feel that this is a great way to spread a message. And why not? It's fun. I love to talk. And she said, how do you want to monetize this? I said, well, I'll fund it myself, but it would be nice if somebody else picked up the tab for things like a fuel bill or a campground. And somebody suggested to me that I get donated fuel cards. And I thought that's a great way to do it, because then you're not giving me money. You're giving me fuel, which is really all I need, because I'm going to stay in this thing anyways. Whether I'm in Wyoming or New York, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be in it. So my life is to sustain it, whether somebody's paying me or not. So this is truly coming from my heart. And there's a lot of people out there that have RV channels. There's a lot of people that have carnivore channels, but nobody that's done both to the level that I've taken it. And quite honestly, for anybody to decorate their rig that they spent $100,000 on the way I did, most people aren't going to do that. And that's how dedicated I am to helping other people. You don't know this, but I also own a beach wheelchair rental and manufacturing company in Florida. And that's also another source of income, but that's really, I've turned it over to somebody else to handle the day-to-day management. But that's just an example of the kind of person I am. I just want to help others. And those two things basically underscore it.
Yeah. And I don't know, in part, but obviously being on the edge of being dead at one point probably refocuses I guess the meaning of life for a lot of people when you get that second chance that you might not have otherwise had. But some people want to give back with that. So how much time do you anticipate you'll be on the road versus, because home is essentially Florida, correct?
That's correct. My goal is to avoid the snow and the ice. I just don't like it. I grew up in it, don't want to be around it. So my goal is to immediately start out in June and head up to the East Coast all the way up to Maine, and then come back down, going to New Jersey for an event with Dr. Wiedemann, and then I'm going to start zigzagging my way across the country. I guess it would be this direction for y'all. Zigzagging my way across the country, basically covering the entire northern half of the United States, so that by the time I get to hopefully see you in Seattle in September, but the weather just really starts to turn even worse, then I'm going to start turning south and making my way back across the Southwest and then across the southern United States. Places I've already been, but with goals in mind of every state I want to visit, every state I want to find somebody who has a story to tell, a life that's been changed, or offers something for others. The bearded butchers in Ohio, they're anxious to meet me and I'm anxious to meet them. I get to learn more about that. So I want to share the best parts of what most people who are landlocked, they're stuck behind their computer. Like we're talking on Zoom right now, there's people who are stuck and they'll never get a chance to get out and do what I'm doing. I want to bring that outside into them to the best of my ability and just share what I'm doing so that maybe they can live a little vicariously.
Yeah. And because some people would say carnivore diet is hard. I don't think it is. I think it's quite easy. In fact, it's probably easier than most diets, but how do you manage that on the road? Like I said, describe how you feed yourself on your road because you're in an RV. And some people would say that's got to be a little challenging, right?
Honestly, it's in the RV that I learned how much I love cooking with propane. I do not like cooking with electricity anymore. So let me put that out there. I don't really use my stove for anything because I don't need it. I don't like the smell of food inside my home. And after you went inside it, you probably didn't smell anything. You probably smelled Peterson's bacon from outside because it was sucking in through the AC. But I prepare everything outside of my grill, and I actually built a custom grill stand that attaches to the RV, and it's just really cool. But that way I can do all of my cooking outside underneath my awning so that I don't get wet. And I have to say, Dr. Baker, the carnivore lifestyle is the easiest thing in the world for anybody who lives on an RV because your refrigerator is very slim for what you need. And then your freezer takes up all the space for your frozen meats. And then you just simply transfer them in. And I predict what I'm going to eat over the next week. And I just take it out and thaw it as I need to. And a recent thing just happened. I'm going to become affiliated with White Oak Pastures. They're going to be providing me with beef and a chest freezer so that when I pull up to a campground, I can say, they say, what in the world is that? I say, I'll tell you what, come back in about an hour and a half and I'll make steaks for everybody, compliments of White Oak. And this is what we're going to do. And so then I just take my meat out of the freezer. It's just that simple. It's so amazing. I can't believe people don't understand just the simplicity side of this.
Yeah. So have you been out to, I guess they're in Bluffton, Georgia. Have you met with Will and showed him the RV and all that type of stuff?
As a matter of fact, he autographed it just like you did. And the crazy thing is, in December 2019, when I had my stroke, my whole family went up to White Oak Pastures because where else would people want to go to celebrate and ring in the new year, but maybe stay in a cabin next to an abattoir at a grass-finished farm? That's exactly what we did. And we stayed there. We got there on New Year's Eve. That evening, we walked into they have a little restaurant where you can order food and they bring it into you. So we're sitting down and Will walked in and my eyes were this big. And I walked up and introduced myself and he said, "You're the guy who just had a stroke." And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Welcome to the farm. My doctor just told me today, if I don't change my ways, I'll end up like you. And he just told me that yesterday. And here you are." The next day, he came out and picked up my entire family in his Jeep and took us on a personal tour of the entire farm. And I learned more about regen farming through that next New Year's Day than any time before. When I went back, I was on my way back from Austin. I stopped there on my way back here to Florida. And I walked up to him and I said, "Mr. Harris, do you remember me?" He said, "Yes, I do." And he started getting teared up. And we talked. And then the next day, he came out and autographed the rig. He loved it. He said, "Anything we can do to support your effort," because what I'm saying now is I'm promoting farmers, not farmers. The last word is going to be PHARMERS. That's probably going to start some arguments.
No, we have a huge, honestly, I think so much of the pharmaceutical industry is captured with conflict of interest and corruption, and it's really for profits and not, at the end of the day, that's their main concern. And I think the benefits to humanity have been modest at best. There's some things that have been helpful, but for the most part, we've got more sick people than we ever had, and it's just masking symptoms. And guys like Will and other ranchers in general are providing the nutrition that keeps us healthy. And we need to support those guys any way we can. So I'm glad to hear that you're partnering, and obviously that'll be a source of advertising for those guys. And like I said, I'm very supportive of the folks that are trying to do the right thing. And I think Will and others in the regenerative space are doing. I still think meat in general is such a health food that we need to capitalize on any of that.
That's right.
Yeah, at the end of the day, Will is a small guy, and he's a giant in regenerative ag, but he's a small guy when it comes to the overall scheme of things. And so the more that we can do to help those people, the better that it is. So as far as you mentioned your wife, she's gonna be with you some of the time or not, or some of it or not, or how's that going to work?
She's a school teacher in Florida. And so when she's off during the summertime, that's going to be her travel time. And if there's something going on that she can fly out to and meet me, then she'll do that. If she can just ride along, she'll ride along as much as she can. In the meantime, she's going to be back in Florida taking care of her kids, as well as also picking up some of the slack with the business with beach wheelchairs. She'll join me when she can, but she understands I'm the retired one. She's not yet. So she's extremely kind in letting me, I guess, sow my oats on the road, if you will.
And you mentioned that September you might be out in my neck of the woods, but do you have a tentative schedule for, say, somebody wanted to say, hey, I want to see this guy or meet this guy in my state? Do you have like places you're definitely going to see? I know some people, I want to go to the Grand Canyon, or I want to go to whatever, you go to South Dakota, you go to the Mount Rushmore, and in Wyoming you go see Devil's Tower, and I don't know. What do you have, things like major places you're going to go?
There's a lot of places that I'd like to see. There's a lot of places I can't get into because the rig is almost 45 feet long, and I can't fit into some of the really cool campgrounds in the national state parks or the national parks, which is okay because I can find a way to do that on a smaller level. But I do have a couple of people already, I guess, let's say, signed up for where I'm going to visit. And interestingly enough, one's in New Jersey, one's in Wyoming. So I'm being asked to backstop a really large beef event in Wyoming in August. I'm being asked to backstop the doctor's event in July in North Carolina. Actually, it was supposed to be in North Carolina this weekend. I just can't do it with Mother's Day weekend happening. It's just not fair to my wife. And so along the way, I actually have a map that I've downloaded for my phone. And on here, I can put dropped pins of where I want to be. And I use that sort of as my guide. But if there's a major event going on that I need to be in, say it's in LA, and I've got a month to prepare to get to it, I'm going to spend my time driving there, stopping at places to meet up with whoever is interested in meeting. And so I'm trying to design how that might look, but I'm looking for the things that I can do that are going to be what I think are compelling and interesting to other people in the life.
Yeah, very nice. And so since you've been, mentioned the fellow you met in Fort Worth, have you been able to see other people adopt a lifestyle since you've been, I guess, I'll say proselytizing, for lack of a better word, or evangelizing this sort of message?
Yes. And as a matter of fact, I have somebody here. This was the very first person that asked me what this was all about. This was 2 months ago. And I told her about it. And she said, I want to know more about this. She's 287 pounds. And her doctor wants her to be 225. So she needs to lose the weight to get hip surgery. Then she told me she was at 256 pounds. And I'm going to tell you the date of this because this is important. That was on April 10th. She was 256. Drum roll, please. I told her, hey, by the way, I'm back in town. She said, I'm calling Monday for a doctor's appointment with the surgeon for August. I'm now at 230 pounds, 5 pounds shy of enough to get surgery. My pants were a waist 52 and I'm down to a size 38. So I'm loving life and you are my hero. I love you to pieces for changing my life. This makes me want to cry. She says, I have to start exercising to get rid of my belly and flab. And now she's able to exercise without injuring herself. And that is beautiful to me. So yes, I have had other interactions, and that literally just happened the day before yesterday when I pulled into town. It's working.
That's pretty awesome. It's interesting. It seems like I'm looking through my social media, and there's just a huge number of people that are going from morbidly obese, a lot of guys 400 pounds plus, and they're all doing carnivore, some version of carnivore, and they're dropping weight. And we've got people that now are 100 pounds, 200 pounds down. And that's becoming a regular thing. So it's incredible to see that amount of weight loss in people. A lot of people would otherwise have given up on. I mean, I don't know if you know, I interviewed a guy named Hal Kramer a while back, and he's got this, it might be fun for you to, but he's got a nursing home out in Phoenix, or several of them. And he's had patients that are, one gal that was 550 pounds, and she's in something like 7 months down 200 pounds. It's just ridiculous. It's
Wow.
the amount of stuff we're seeing here. But as far as your own personal diet, what does that look like at home and at the RV? Is it pretty much the same no matter where you're at, or how do you manage? What's a typical day? Is it like 2 meals a day, or do you 1 meal a day, or what do you do with the RV stuff?
It's pretty crazy. I learned from this guy named Dr. ShawnBaker to eat ribeye. And so that's what I eat. I literally have a $117 loin rib roast sitting in my fridge that I'm going to be cutting here in about an hour to make my ribeyes, because I like them about 1.5 inches thick. Literally ribeyes almost every single day, and usually one time a day. Now, I took a cue from Dr. Huberman, and I don't eat until 2:00. So I try to hold myself off until 2, let my body consume its own fat, get my energy from my own body, and then try to do OMAD as much as I can. The other night, I took my wife out to celebrate our birthday. We have the same birthday. So we went out to celebrate, and we ate at a local steakhouse. You're going to love this. They brought us our 30-ounce ribeye, bone-in ribeye, hand cut. And she looked at that and she said, based on what you told me, doesn't Dr. Baker say that he would eat 2 of these a day? I said, pretty much. And so then they knew that we were carnivore, and the manager came out. He said, I don't think I can do a dessert for you guys because you're carnivore. I said, no, we really don't need anything. He says, I got something. He wandered off. He came back 20 minutes later with a filet mignon with 2 candles in it. And he said, can you eat this? We destroyed it. Yes. So daily I eat steak, ground beef, eggs, 2:00 usually. Sometimes I'll eat around 6 or 7 with the family. But when I do, there's very little left for me to eat in a day because I just don't want it. Just not hungry.
Yeah, very good. And that's a lot of people, and it's pretty satiating. Have you any downsides? Just to be fair, is there any major downsides? Do you find it socially stigmatizing or expensive or health issues with it, or has it all been pretty much good?
Okay, so for me, knock on wood, so far so good. I've had no health issues. I've only had health benefits. When it comes to the social side, I'm really excited that I was able to do this, because now I get to explain to people that when you eat socially, you can eat socially as a carnivore better, because once you've enjoyed your meal, now you're doing what you were supposed to do, which is hanging out socially with your friends. You don't have to drink. You can drink club soda. You can drink water. Don't drink alcohol. It changes the mood, changes the dynamic. Eat good, healthy food. And when you've eaten that good, healthy food and you've really enjoyed it, because most people do, then you have the rest of the afternoon or evening or that meal with the people. And you're not feeling bloated because you've been eating this horrible for you foods, no process. I think from a social point of view, it's even better. Now, where we ate the other night, the 30-ounce ribeye was market price, $75. So yes, that's expensive to just about anybody else. However, if we're only going to go out to eat maybe once every 2 weeks because we can control our food better in our own home, if we're going to do that, then why not go have that every 2 weeks for what, $37 a person? You're eating a phenomenal 15-ounce amount of ribeye. I think from the financial point of view, I think it opens up so many more doors. Now you're not just going out with your friends to eat somewhere, going out somewhere, not spending a whole lot for your food. So you might be able to go to a nicer place. You might be able to eat and then go do something like bowling or just walking or riding a bike, doing something where you're social. I wish people would stop thinking of shoving French fries in their mouth as social, because it's not. It's just we've got such a bad relationship with food.
We certainly do. And it can, like I said, when you're standing around on the grill, you can socialize during that time. It's building anticipation, and then you get the reward from this wonderful thing that we have the opportunity to have. How much of the time, because I was just trying to think about what would I do if I was driving around the country all the time. I'd want to be getting out and walking around. And how much of the time is in the rig versus actually, do you spend a couple of days in an area and go explore around, or how does that work for you?
For sure. My wife actually had to calm me down because I was all about the destination. And she said, honey, it's all about the journey. And I understood that. Now, when I have somewhere I have to be, I do have to be mindful of the destination. But along the way, when I wake up and I see a gorgeous sunrise, I'm going to experience it. I'd like to wake up and have 10 minutes of sun time before I have 10 minutes of screen time with my phone. And yeah, I love to stop and smell the roses. I would probably lose that amazing race show because I would stop in every city and want to see and taste and know. So yeah, when I'm driving, it might be for an hour and a half to 2 hours at a time. I'll pull the RV over into a rest stop. Usually it's easy to get in and out of. I'll get out and stretch my legs. I have to because the left side of my body is dead and my left leg hurts. I know it seems crazy. I can't feel the temperature on the outside, but I can feel the pain on the inside. And I've got L4, L5 issues. And so I have to walk some because if I don't, then I literally would have to use a cane or a walker just to make it across a parking lot. So I do that and I get to stretch a little bit. And if I see something really cool in a town, I'm stopping. If I'm driving through Amarillo, you can bet I'm going to stop and spray some spray paint on a Cadillac buried in the ground on top of that much paint on the outside of one already. So yes, I do like to stop and smell the roses as much as I can.
Yeah, I guess when you go to Amarillo, you got to stop by the Big Tex and go check out the home of the huge 72-ounce.
That's on my list.
I don't know if you can do, I'm sure I know I could do that. I have no problem. The problem is I probably wouldn't want to eat the sides and then it wouldn't qualify, but I know I can put down 72 ounces of meat, no problem.
Sure.
As far as driving across the country and that sort of stuff, do you stick to highways the whole time? Or are you going to back roads or what's the thing look?
Funny you asked that. I learned a lesson. I've been driving trucks for a very long time. I drove Billy Bob Thornton on his musical tour, and that was a very heavy Prevost bus, tour bus. So I've learned where you can and can't go with a lot of vehicles. If you get off the beaten path with an RV that's 13'6" tall, it's easy to take off an air conditioner. So I learned my lesson last year. We were in Tennessee, driving from northern Georgia to southern Tennessee through the mountains. And on turns where I literally was taking up the other side of the road, hoping somebody wasn't about to come around the bend, because if I took it too sharp, I would take out the side of my RV. So to answer that question, I try really hard to stick to the main roads because they were made for me. If I get too far off the beaten path, I can get in trouble. If I really want to go explore something, I'll just drop the RV somewhere in a parking lot, lock it up, and I'll take off and go check it out. But I haven't really done that. I need something much smaller to do that. But there are some things worth seeing that you can't take the rig to. I'll figure out how to get to those some way, somehow.
Yeah, I see some people like tow a vehicle behind their RV. I guess that's got what I guess gas mileage on that thing. What is you get $8 a gallon or something, or 8 gallons, miles a gallon or something like that?
8 gallons per mile is my joke. Yeah, I average 10.1 and about 3,200 miles going to and from Austin, but that's all pretty much flat roads. When I start getting into the mountains of North Carolina, Tennessee, maybe getting across to the Colorado Rockies, I'll probably see 5 to 8 on average. That would be my guess. If you break it down, it's almost $1 a mile when you factor in everything: fuel, maintenance, DEF. It's a fluid that we have to put in our rigs, modern day rigs, and then wear and tear and insurance. So it's about $1 a mile.
Wow. Okay. So I'm just wondering if obviously you don't have to pay for housing costs because you can sleep in it. So I don't know if it's a wash in the end with that put in there, but I guess you can count in. I don't have to spend money on restaurants for the most part. I can eat at home and that type of stuff. And then I guess you get the advantage of seeing everything that most people don't see. You probably see more of this country. You said mission to go. Obviously, you could get it up to Alaska. You can't get it to Hawaii, but you could do certainly the continental 48 pretty easily. And that's going to be, I guess, are you going to hit every state in your tour? Do you think every continental state?
That is absolutely my goal. Yes. And you know what? Honestly, if I can make it to Alaska, and it could, if I wanted to, I could, but there's going to be that's a really expensive trip. I could cover most of the United States for just the trip up to Alaska from where you are. So yeah, I have to be, I'm 100% mindful of hitting every single state, even if it's just to blow through a state like Delaware for a day. I can't put the sticker on the map if I don't sleep there. That's my rule. So I don't know, maybe I'll just pull over to a rest stop and take a nap in the rig and say, okay, I slept there. So yeah, I do want to hit everyone. And I may stay a day, I may stay 2 or 3 days in the state, depending on what my option is to be able to go get an interview with someone. I know I'm going to have to do that. So some places I can't set up the full rig. Some places just open the slides, go to sleep.
Yeah. Are there any talk about meat-based tourism stops? Like I talk about Big Texan and Amarillo, and you've got, obviously in Austin, you've got some pretty solid brisket stops in there. Are there any sort of, I want to try this sort of restaurant or this sort of cuisine? Has that been part of is that on your list?
It is absolutely on my list. And it's not going to be necessarily just beef. It's going to be other things that might be a delicacy. Why not have bison out in Wyoming when I'm there? Why not have, or in Montana, why not have some Maine lobster when I'm up there? So yeah, I absolutely do want to do that. Morton Steakhouse, things like that. I definitely want to do. So when I find something cool, it's like I can't remember his name, Stool Presidente, the Barstool Sports founder. He does the one bite pizza. I'd like to try to do the one bite steak challenge. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So who knows what that'll turn into.
What is the one bite pizza? Is it you shove a whole piece of pizza in your mouth or something like that? Or what does it do with that?
He takes a bite of the pizza. He walks into a pizza joint. He comes back out with a slice of pizza in his hand. He takes a bite, and then he gives it his ranking, up to, I think it's 10 stars or so. And he got really popular for that. And during COVID, people were actually shipping him pizzas to let him try in his apartment, which he did. And I thought, you know what, I can do that with steak. And I actually did. When I got to Fort Worth, I went to the number 10 out of the top 50 in the state of Texas restaurants, barbecue restaurants, out of 411 voted. So it's a big deal to get there. And it was called Panther City. I actually sous vide'd the barbecue that I brought back to my wife. I sous vide'd that last night for dinner, and she was blown away. And she said, "You mean there's 9 more ahead of this?" I said, "That's right." So yes, absolutely want to try everything that I possibly can.
Yeah, good for you. That sounds fun, delicious. How do you, a lot of people, when it comes to managing their health, there's other things we do besides eat, getting good sleep, getting some exercise. How do you sleep on that thing? Now, it looked pretty comfortable to me, but when people tell me about sleeping in an RV, I'm like, man, I'm going to be crammed in there. It's going to be, because I'm a big guy, but how do you manage with that stuff?
I have a sleep number bed. So let's just put that right out there. I love my sleep number. I will not ever not have one. I've had one for 25 years, different sizes. I actually took the king size mattress out of this, put the queen size in so I could have a little bit more room to move around. We have a king size mattress at my wife's place in Daytona. I sleep really incredibly well. I love the white noise that comes from my air conditioner. If there was a downside to these, is that you've got, on this rig, I have 3 air conditioners and they do make noise, but I sleep really well with that. I will probably sleep through a tornado or a hurricane, which is not a good thing, but I sleep like a baby on this thing. In fact, I sleep better in it than I do in a hotel. And I hate hotels now. It's my suitcase. It's my toiletry bag, it's my laundry all in one, and my freezer and my refrigerator. Why do I want to move into a hotel? That's too much stuff to carry around.
Yeah, fair enough. And then, like I said, you have the washer and dryer in there. And so how often do you have to, I guess, the water for the washer and dryer and the showers and the toilet? How do you manage? How hard is that to manage, and how often do you have to do that?
Yeah, it's really not hard to manage. When I get to a campground, typically it's going to be a full hookups campground. And what that means is that you have full electricity, full water. I have water filters on board, one for drinking, one that I drink. It's a Berkey filter. But aside from that, I've got a regular water filter in line with my system. And I've got a water softener because hard water is just not friendly to anybody, especially appliances on a rig. So I have I want to say it's 104 gallon freshwater tank. So that's plenty of water for one person. I have 2 gray tanks and a black tank that combined hold about another 125 gallons. So I can go for a long time if I don't run the wash and if I take a short shower. I can have plenty of water for all of my needs that would last me easily over a week. I plan to put solar on the system so that I've got a way of generating power when I'm not in the Pacific Northwest where there's no sun. But for the most part, I'm fully self-contained with my water, and it's very comfortable.
Yeah. And the other thing is you said I think you have a YouTube channel or something like that. How do you have a mobile Wi-Fi? Are you like a Starlink thing, or how does that work for you to get your access for getting this information out?
So far, so good. I haven't had to have anything other than just using my hotspot from my cell phone. Although I am now investigating the Starlink system because I think that's going to be much more necessary as I get into more remote places. And I just know that there's going to be times that I can't promote and I can't process, or I can't do live stuff. I can't do immediate everyday things. That's okay. That gives me a couple more days, the way I see it, to be able to process videos, to make content, to think of things, stuff like that. So I don't think it's going to be necessary to have that constant connection, although it will be nice. I don't think it's going to be 100% necessary for what I'm trying to do. But Starlink is definitely what I think I'm going to have to lean towards.
Yeah, okay. I can tell you, I live out in a rural area. If you come out to where I'm at, you'll see. And that's what I'm using, and it's worked generally pretty good. Now I have to do podcasts and things like that every once in a while. When it goes offline, you have to wait a second, but it's generally been quite.
So right now you're doing this via Starlink?
Yeah.
That's amazing, because this is great quality. It's all I would need. So
yeah, it's been pretty effective so far.
Dig that.
As far as, I guess, some other things people want to know about, you're obviously eating steaks, lots of fat, lots of protein, electrolytes. What do you drink? You mentioned filtered water. How do you manage fluid electrolytes? How much fat do you eat? How much protein do you tend to get?
I used to use Element, and then I had Relight from Redmond, and it was incredible. I'm already a Redmond fan because I love the salt. Why not drink the electrolytes also? So I do electrolytes at least once a day. I've got 3 different bottles that I put in the RV, in the refrigerator, so that when I'm driving, I have my electrolyte source while I'm on the road, typically 32 ounces. So I will drink that over a period of maybe an hour. But other than that, I drink an awful lot of water during the daytime. And yeah, so did that answer the question? I hope.
Yeah, fair enough. It's just kind of because some people have questions about how do you manage these other things. As far as the benefits, obviously, I guess you had a stroke. You were probably seen by a neurologist at some point. Have you had follow-up with that person, or what's been the medical care, and what's been the thought since you're on this quote unquote unsupported, I don't know, people think it's a dangerous diet, but how's that been going?
So I fired my neurologist. I'm just being honest with you. I fired him.
What prompted that, just out of curiosity?
I didn't like the level of care that I was receiving. Every time I described an issue, something that I was having, they would throw something else at it. Pain management doctors would want to try to get a hold of it and do something, but honestly, nothing has worked. So I just have to learn how to handle it myself, push through it, because short of maybe surgery, I don't know what's going to repair my back and my leg, because I've got an L4, L5 degenerative disc issue, likely precipitated from law enforcement. So that's not going to go away easily. It certainly hasn't gone away, losing the weight that I have. So that's what disillusioning, I think, is a word. So it's hard for me to find trust in other neurologists right now. And I just was tired of going in, and I have this thing. If you go to your doctor once a month to be checked up after being given a new prescription, you might as well just have another subscription to Netflix, because that's what you have. And I felt like I was subscribed to my doctor, just going in every month to be checked up. They already told me they can't fix my brain. You can't rewire it. This particular neurologist didn't know anything about mirror therapy. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with what it is, but mirror therapy is that if one thing doesn't work on your body, mirror it, and now let your brain teach yourself that's the way it's supposed to work. I was actually sitting with someone the other day who just had a stroke. They lost the use of these 2 fingers. So I taught them how mirror therapy works, but now they don't need a mirror. They have their hands right in front of them. So I told them, move your thumbs in, move your fingers, do this one at a time. You're teaching your brain that's what that's supposed to do. My neurologist didn't know anything about that. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to wear a MD badge, I think you should probably know some of these tricks as well. It was not surgical. It was not medicated. So I guess it didn't fit his standard of care. It's the only thing I can think of. So I haven't found a neurologist yet that I trust other than listening to Andrew Huberman talk. And I think he really gets it. I'd love to meet him one day. Maybe, hey, Dr. Huberman, if you're seeing this, I really want to meet you.
Yeah. See, I don't know if he's a neurologist or if he's a
Or
neuroscientist. I think
yeah,
I don't think he's a clinical guy, but
fair point. Fair point.
but yeah, like I said, a lot of us are finding that the standard of care healthcare system is fallen short for many of our goals and hopes. And so sometimes we have to, and I think it's important you have to be in charge of your own health. And sometimes it involves doing things that are not necessarily going to the doctor and outsourcing and listening to every single thing they do and taking every pill they want you to take, because for a lot of folks, it's been counterproductive. It's not to say that there isn't some good that comes of that, but you just have to be mindful of, if you're not getting the results that you hope to achieve, sometimes you got to do something different. And I'm supportive of that. Just be mindful that sometimes the different things don't work either. So you just have to be objective of where you're going. And it sounds like you're generally in better than you were a couple of years ago. Is that fair to say?
Oh, without question, I am. And every day I feel like I'm advancing a little bit more, but my back doesn't really want to agree with that. But my cognitive abilities have certainly come back. And of course, I'm driving an 18,000 pound RV around the country. So I've gotten that part back too. So
yeah, how long is there a rule for how long you're willing to drive? I know with like commercial truck drivers, there's like a cutoff where you must pull over and rest after a certain period of time. And I don't know what that time is. I think it's 8 hours, 12 hours. Or it is 8 hours. Okay. So are you pretty cognizant of how long you're willing to drive?
honestly, and it's funny how this relates to what we do. You know, when you eat something that you haven't had in a long time and it makes you feel really bad, your body's talking to you. Your body talks to you when you're driving just the same. And so I think 300 miles is a pretty hard and fast limit for me. If I get over 300, my body's fighting me. This isn't just like driving any car and you're driving 300 miles. This is driving something that is your home. It's a lot different than just carrying a car or a trailer or your boat. You live in this thing. And if something happens to it, you're not living in it. You can't just park it at a body shop while they fix something. You have to actually move all the things that you're comfortable with into a hotel room. And then you're there for God knows how long until that device is fixed. Literally driving from Cocoa Beach yesterday, I pulled up on a fifth wheel RV, and the truck caught fire and it burned to the ground. And the whole front end of their rig was destroyed. And I felt bad because I thought, my gosh, that's their home. And sure enough, they're full time like I am. And so they're now out of their home, which is pretty scary. I think as long as I'm mindful of what my truck can do, mindful of what my body can do, maybe 300, 350 miles or 7 to 8 hours, whichever comes first. So yeah,
that's a lot of time to be honest, to be sitting on the road and trying to, because you got to focus and concentrate. And are you usually pulling up? How long do you go in one stretch before I used to pride myself where I could drive 18 hours without you'd stop to pee and to get gas. But other than that, and what's the size of the tank on this thing? How many is probably 500 gallons? I don't even know what the size tank is on this thing.
Yeah. So it's a 42 gallon tank I have an F350 dually that I pull it with. It's 42 gallons, and that's about 330 miles worth of travel when I'm towing the RV, as long as I'm being careful. So at about 10 miles per gallon. You're looking at it got up as high as $240 to fill it up during the end of the summer of 2022. So I would say 300 miles is a safe limit for the fuel as well. And I certainly don't want to be stranded somewhere without fuel.
Yeah. And I guess obviously you're somewhat of the mercy of what part of the world you're in, but you drive through California, fuel prices are going to be higher than they are in, say, Texas or New Mexico or something like that. But is that ever part of your calculations? God, the gas prices over here are going to kill me. I want to refuel in this state, not this state. Does that ever come up?
It's funny you said that, because I actually fueled up outside of Alabama and drove from Mississippi to Georgia without stopping in Alabama because I wasn't going to buy their fuel because it's too expensive. So yes, I do. As soon as you cross going east to west, as soon as you cross the Louisiana state line, fuel drops by as much as 50 cents to $1 per gallon. When you get into Texas, it drops easily $1 per gallon. So I'm very mindful of where I buy my fuel, and I might just be topping it off just to know what my distance to empty is. I might say, okay, I can afford to top it off here and make it this next stretch without having to stop. And I always want to be able to stop with a reserve. I used to be a pilot, so it's important to know that you have to have enough fuel to land and have some reserve. So I do the same thing with the truck. It's just a natural habit.
Yeah, I know driving. Sometimes I drive out of California, going from the Southern California, Orange County area across into Arizona and stuff. And if I'd run out of gas after Bakersfield, there was just this one little place and they would charge you so much damn money. It was the only place for, gosh, at least 75 miles. If you started running out, that was your only option. They were like ridiculous. And you'd feel,
Yeah.
And I get as little money, as little as I thought I could afford till I can get into somewhere in Arizona where they would have better prices. But yeah, it's definitely a thing because some prices are hugely different. So when you're only getting 10 miles a gallon, you got to be mindful of that stuff for sure. We got just a couple more minutes left, Greg. Anything else you want to share about what you do or thoughts about carnivore or lifestyle or anything else you want to share?
The biggest thing I want people to know, because it was the number one question that I got from everybody, is why do you do this? And I like to think of myself as the influencer for the influencers. And that's going to be people like you. I wouldn't have known about any of this life if you weren't so prevalent. If you weren't, I guess, it became commonplace to turn on my YouTube and see a feed that had you, where all the discussions were talking about the carnivore life, and the anecdotal evidence is overwhelming when you meet others. And now that I know that there's this huge database of people who live like we do, coming from places like you, where you're actually assembling, and I'm going to plug Revero right now, because when people say my doctor would never go for this, I go, that's because your doctor wants you to take meds. You need to go through a different avenue and find that right doctor. I want people to understand that if you're going to talk something great about a restaurant you went to, you're going to talk great about this lifestyle that you started living as a carnivore, spread that message with others. Be that person. How do you know if someone's a vegan? They're going to tell you. How do you know if somebody's a CrossFitter? They're going to tell you. How do you know if you're a carnivore? You'll see it. You'll hear it. They'll smile. They'll glow. They're in top shape and they're winning. And I just want to help people win. That's all.
Yeah, and I think as much as we joke about vegans will tell you, CrossFitters will tell you, I think carnivores need to tell people too, because I think it's an important message to get out there. And I think we should not be ashamed of what we do and who we are. And some people, you don't have to be like preachy and virtue signaling type of thing, but say, hey, this is what I do. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to tell you about it. And I think, like you said, the health will speak for itself in many pieces of people, and we'll see, because people that knew you when you were 250 pounds to see you now are going to be like, something's different. What the hell did you do? And I think it's important to let people know the truth, what works for you. And anyway, so with that, I have to go, Greg. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to, if you're able to get out here to the Pacific Northwest, I will, like I said, I know I'm going to be out of the country at the end of August. So most of September, I should be around. So I'd love to see you again. And thank you for doing what you're doing and being another person that's spreading this message. Thanks very much. For us, we'll be back tomorrow with kind of a standard no guest meeting. So if you want to ask questions, that's a great time. So see you guys back tomorrow. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. Have a great trip. And when do you start rolling out the door? As you said, June is when you're planning on leaving?
Approximately the first week of June.
First week of June. All right, man. Drive safe, and look forward to seeing when you get up this part of the country. All right.
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye, guys. Take care now.
Bye, everyone.
I know.